Welcome to the Spirit of Business, where we help businesses learn to thrive. I am your host, Jamie Pritchard, mortgage agent with Mortgage Guys. And today I have my guest, Tim Campbell. And I would like to give you a little bit of background into Tim. Tim is so extroverted, they put the social back in social media. Tim is a credentialed small business consultant and social media marketer. Tim has also published 2 books in the area of small business and social enterprises. They're a celebrated digital marketer and community mobilizer who takes a value-first, people-centered approach to their practice in life. Tim's consulted for and spoken with hundreds of entrepreneurs, churches, and organizations, most notably with Seabase, the Upper Grand District School Board, 10C Shared Space, the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, the Ontario Wedding Association, the Resilience Summit, also known as F and Facts Waterloo, and various small business centers around Ontario. Tim has also published 2 books on social media marketing and business development, from bots to Facebook groups, church marketing to competitor analysis, rather, my bad. Tim weaves humorous stories of hope and wit that will both inspire and entertain audience with over 100 events organized and spoken at. They're the speaker who will rock your event. Welcome, Tim. How are you?
I'm well caffeinated, so I'm off to the race. How about you?
Very well, very well, very well. What compelled you? Your business, Relation Media, you've been doing, I just understand you've had your 3-year anniversary, so happy anniversary.
Thank you.
I know you're very excited about that. Can you tell our listeners what compelled you to start this business?
That's a great question. That's not what everyone thinks it is. So I lived in Los Angeles, California for a year, taking a year to figure out what to do with my life. And there was a presentation, a group offering a seminar on social media for churches, which I thought was a really unique intersection. And I went with a friend, and it was one of the worst presentations I've ever been to in my life. I felt so bad for the speakers who were ill-qualified to be there, and they knew they were, and they even made jokes about it. And the entire time I was just thinking, I could do this better. I could do this better. So after the presentation, I turned to my friend and I said, I figured out what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a social media consultant. And she said, great, go for it. So I started talking to the people around me and just asking them, like, if I did social media, like, what would that look like? What kind of help do you need? And I realized it was, I was surrounded by what I call like the little people of life, like small business owners, like churches, your everyday people. And that really inspired me to get into the industry and to care for the little people, especially because once I really got started, I worked with a career coach who had me interview other digital marketers, and they all said, oh, this business is so lucrative. You can make so much money and charge so much money. And that's when I really saw that there was a gap in who we can serve and how we can support people. And that's when I realized, oh, no, I'm going to go and I'm going to support people, the little people in life who actually make the world go round.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you're in LA for a year. Was that, what was the purpose of that?
Yeah, so it was through my church, through the whole denomination, and they had this program for young adults who, if you had no idea what you were doing with your life, you could take not a year off, it was a year on for sure. You worked at a nonprofit, you got training in leadership and development and equity and justice work, and you were given a spiritual director to help you figure out, like, what were you going to do with the rest of your life, or what kind of career or vocation did you want to go into. So I kind of lived into that calling and that mission and figured out what I wanted to do.
What's one thing you wish you would have known before you got into this career?
How much heartbreak there would be.
Tell me more.
I had a few friends who I knew were entrepreneurs and in the business world before I even got into this world. And actually, there were two people specifically who had said, Tim, you would make a really great entrepreneur. Like, you should figure out if you can go into business.
Right.
And I really looked up to them. And when I went into business, I discovered them. And there were, a few other people along the way who I thought were my friends and thought had my best interest at heart, but didn't always. And I don't hold them at fault for times they spoke ill of me, or they all wanted me to grow, but they all wanted me to grow their way and always give them credit for it. And I didn't. And that led to a couple lost friendships. So
that's one thing that is unique about your business, because just a transparency, Tim is my social media. For our listeners, Tim does help me with my social media. And one of the questions you always ask before we move on to the next stage is, how can I love on you more? And that's what really makes you different, and what you talked about with the heartache. So tell us about that. Where does that come from, Tim?
Loving on you fiercely.
That's it.
Yeah. It's a series that's an amalgamation of different questions I've heard. One of the earliest books I read, I think it was Simon Sinek's Book Yourself Solid. I hope I'm not butchering that, but the book was Book Yourself Solid. And one of the things he teaches and talks about is the need to ask really strong questions. And you hear about that, especially in the coaching space, that if you're really good at what you do, you're really good at asking questions. So I had heard people ask about, like, how can I support you? How can I love you? A friend of mine is really good about and really talented at breathing intentionality into everything. So it was a mix of all these different questions I heard. And then fierce and fiercely is kind of a word that I use. It's different, and it's
I get that.
So that's how, thank you. So that's how that came in. And then I don't know, just one day I had asked someone, how can I love on you most fiercely? And I've never seen someone stop and really need a moment after just a question. And I realized, that's the question. That's the question I need to ask people more often. How can I love on you most fiercely?
Yeah, that definitely is your signature question. And the first time you asked me that, it was, wow, nobody's ever asked me that before. And that's the one thing that I really find about you is you are very authentic in the way that you care about your clients and everything that you do. What's your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
Oh.
I'm sorry, did I embarrass you?
No, you know what, and I love talking about this, and especially in the last year, more people have asked me to talk about it. So this past year, I really had to own up to my failures, and now I do. So I had a client once, in the earlier days of my career, and they basically wanted to become an influencer, but not just like a social media influencer, like all over like news and different publications and go-to for their health practice. But they had no social media at all. So I told them, I said, right from the get-go, I'm like, you've got to start with your social media. And I tried to lead them down that path, and I was very intimidated by them. I won't say they were intimidating. I was intimidated by them. So every time I asked for something that we needed, like, I need you to write an article, or I need more photos, they'd say, no, we're not writing, or we're not doing photos. And I'd say, okay. And it got to a point that I just didn't like them anymore, but I kept doing the job because I wanted the money. And it was the worst breakup I've ever had in my work history. And it came to bite me back in the butt. They left me negative reviews on social. That's when I learned, like, you can't just say that you are something, you have to live into it. And I thought I'd been a person of integrity who would do good work for my clients and stand by it. And here was this 5-month long example that I was not being the most genuine. So, so now I only work with people I love. I have to love my clients. And I can honestly say I now love all of my clients. And and just be straight up and say no if a project doesn't feel right or if it's not going to work. And not
So,
just not saying no.
Tim, is that a feeling? Is that things that you look for? Like, how do you know that you're going to love a client before you take them on?
Yeah. So on the more frou-frou side, as I say,
Yeah.
you can feel it. You can feel the energy and the synergy between the two. In a practical way, it's, are we agreeing and complimenting each other enough in a meeting? Especially, that first and second meeting. Are we saying yes more often than we're saying no, you've kind of missed the mark? How often are you saying yes versus no? That's a big thing I look for. And then just the expectations. Do they have reasonable expectations? Do we think we can work well together? Those are the big things I look for.
How often do you say no to a client?
Oh, there's no set rate because it comes with ebbs and flows in business.
Right.
I can say in the last month, I turned down two.
Okay.
Two. And I said yes to 3. So out of 5, I said no 40% of the time, which I'm sure my accountant would not be thrilled with. But it felt right. And I felt better being able to refer them to someone else.
So, having started a couple of businesses myself, that first year, you tend to take on pretty well whatever you can to get the revenue flowing. So, how does that impact you, or does it at all? Like saying no and knowing that money, like you say, your accountant is saying, "Tim, what are you thinking?" How does that impact you from a business standpoint? Is it hard to do?
It's easier than it was, and
Right.
there's still room for it to get easier. The big thing is I care about people, and I want their online presence and their businesses to thrive.
Yeah.
And it sucks when I can't be the catalyst for change. But what I'm learning, and please know, I may sound confident here, but this is something I really work hard and have to lean into, and it's hard to accept, that I'm working on, is knowing that the best thing I can do for people is sometimes pass them on to someone else.
Right.
And send them in another direction, and trust that the universe and the other people that I send them to will take care of them.
And I make similar decisions in the mortgage industry as well. And it could just be where they are, what my skill set is too, that it might not be the best thing and it's not going to be a great experience. So why would I put people through that? That's great. What advice would you give someone looking at pursuing a career similar to yours?
Oh, in social media marketing?
Yep.
Oh, do it. It's hard work. It's hard work. It's a lot to learn. So one, you cannot stop learning. You cannot afford to stop learning. You have to have an open mind. I think my biggest piece of advice would just be open to change and be aware of your own habits and mindset. Social media, especially in social media, digital marketing, things change every day, best practices change, and you have to test and experiment, and you've got to be prepared to be wrong, or for your best practices and your ideals to change. When I started in social media marketing, storytelling and long form storytelling was the big thing, because the algorithms had recently changed and now people wanted more user-friendly content. But in just 3-4 years, attention spans have gotten so shorter. We've moved towards video, so now long form storytelling is no longer the most ideal thing. You have to be able to tell something very quickly, ideally through video. If not video, then pictures and media. And that certainly isn't the way it was when I started. So you've got to be really open to change and changing your position on things.
And that's one thing that I have noticed about you. You're always learning. You're always on top of whatever's going on. How do you do that? What do you
Great question.
allocate a certain time? How do you stay on top of all this nonsense?
Here's my little secret, and this is a little technical on the social media end,
Okay.
but if anybody has questions, they can ask. Twitter is my main go-to, and on Twitter, there's a feature or a function called lists. So when you follow someone, or when you are on a platform and you follow people, you get
Yep.
all of the posts in one newsfeed. Twitter lists allow you to curate like mini news feeds. I have a newsfeed, a list on Twitter of 20 social media marketing experts. They are experts in different fields. So there's one for each platform, but then there's general ones, and there's content marketing in there. There's paid advertising. And every single day, I read at least 3 articles. My favorite time, I like to do it if I'm traveling, if I'm not driving, if I have downtime. It's not a good habit. I don't encourage this, but I do it over meals, usually over breakfast and over lunch. I will read articles every
That's
single
by
day.
yourself, not while you're having lunch with somebody else.
Exactly, which is why I won't do it at dinner, because I always have dinner with someone. So
Right, right. Well, thank you for that tip. I'm not a Twitter user, so but you're using it as a resource.
exactly that,
Yeah.
and I do follow some of my competitors on Instagram, but more so the ones that share value, who are sharing more thought leadership than they are trying to like a sales message. So that helps as well.
What are some other great resources that you have or that you use in your business?
Oh, that I use.
Resources. Sorry.
Oh gosh. People. So let's start with people. I have mentors. It was about 2 years ago where I became fascinated with the concept of mentors, and I got mentors. So I got mentors who had achieved things that I had wanted to achieve at least multiple times over. So I found a mentor who's been in business for over 20 years, has helped others, and is really, really successful in a really strange business. I have someone who runs a business, but also blends justice work into his business. So he was an example there. And then I didn't realize that I had a need for this, but I needed someone in the social media world. And recently I started just having more regular conversations and almost like a mentor in the social media world. So that's my first one. Get a mentor.
Okay, get a mentor.
Get a mentor. And then the other thing related to people is just know your centers of influence and who you can go to. So Jamie and I, we are based out, for our viewers, we're based out of Guelph. So around the Guelph area, I'm friends with the head of the Small Business Enterprise Center, Innovation Guelph, which is an incubator hub, with the University of Guelph, and with the people in the Department of the Lang School of Business who work in entrepreneurship. So I'm tapped into them. So I can always kind of go to them. I can count on those friendships and those relationships. Is a really, really big one. And then my final, like my resource that just, my thing that keeps me going gaily forward. There we go. Is my agenda. My agenda is life. I write all my notes in it, things I need to remember, keeps me going. I couldn't live without agenda.
Yeah, you're one of the few people that I know that still has, anytime I book an appointment with you, you're opening it. There it is. There it is. Agenda. You're the only one, I go online. I've got everything all synced up to my Calendly and Google, and there's Tim writing it in his agenda.
Well, this perfect case study for why we need mentors. I was at a point where I was the same way. I was using Google Calendars for everything, and I don't know, it just stopped working. Like, it stopped working well. I was double booking appointments, missing appointments, things weren't syncing up. And a mentor of mine, I was talking to her about this, and she said, other than the technological problems, you're running your calendar on your phone. You don't take your phone seriously because you use it so often and so frequently for mindless stuff. If you have an agenda, this serves one function, and it has a special space in your brain.
Right.
Get a paper calendar. So it was actually a mentor's suggestion to get a paper calendar. One of the greatest suggestions ever made.
So mentors is something that a lot of small business owners talk about their success. I'm always curious as to how you engaged your mentors. Do you pay them? Is it something that they, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of people out there that would like to have that other sounding board, which I think is fantastic because it can be a lonely business as an entrepreneur. So tell us about your journey in getting those mentors.
Okay, so this is a laugh, and this is probably really counterintuitive. I don't know how helpful it is, but I'll tell you my story.
Okay.
So I decided I did want mentors, and I put it out into the universe. And by that, I mean on social media. I put it on Facebook and I put it on LinkedIn. I'm looking for a mentor in my business. I had an idea in my mind what a mentor was, but I didn't always vocalize it, and I wasn't always comfortable vocalizing it. So I must have spent like 2 or 3 weeks interviewing business consultants and coaches. And my immediate, actually, I do not like to waste time. I will end a meeting if we are done and like ready to go. And all of these meetings, the second they said, oh, the way I work with clients, they said the word client, and I'm like, I'm out. I'm not a client, I'm a mentee, and you're a mentor, which in my mind was a different relationship. Right. So 3 weeks of this, and I'm frustrated and I'm disappointed and I haven't found a mentor. And it was just a friend of mine who I really admired and respected, and she had an amazing business, and she was like, let's go for coffee, as we do at least once a month. And over coffee, like always, she said, well, how's your business? And how are things going? And have you tried and have you thought of? And I just looked at her and realized, oh my God, you're my mentor. You're the first. So that's how it was the first. The theme to all of these, I'll give you this now, is that they were all relationships that I already had. And they were people I already respected. And I just dug a little deeper into the relationship. Yeah. So the second person was this guy who I saw at my office. And he was helping around with maintenance and this kind of thing. And he just seemed really cool. And I said, I would like to take you out for coffee sometime and just get to know you. And he was like, we should go to, okay, I will reveal this. And he said, we should go to Cornerstone. I'm like, great. I love the Cornerstone. He goes, I'm so glad to hear because that's my restaurant. And once I got to know him, and he told me a story that he said, I wanted a space for people to do good work. My space for people to do good things just happens to serve food as well. And then I realized, dang, here. And when I said, would you mentor me? Would you just can I just pick your brain once a month and I'll take you out for food and this kind of thing? And he was like, I would love that. It's been a long time since I've mentored anyone. And it'd be nice to be inspired again. And then the third person was pretty much the same. We just kept having these Zoom calls, checking in with each other. And I was like, you're in social media and you're light years ahead of me. Would you do this thing with me and just chat with me once a month about my business? And she was like, I'd love to. I love talking to you. So it was very informal, but they were relationships I already had and people I respected because they had achieved things that I wanted. So I don't pay them. There's no formal agreement with them. In my mind, though, and what I've done is whenever we go out, I don't let them pay for anything. I pay for everything. And about twice a year, I try to send them thank you gifts, gift cards, flowers, experiences, whatever I can. Because without them, I would not be anywhere near where I am today.
Fantastic. That's a great story. One myth about your profession that you would like to debunk.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
Just one.
Just one.
We social media folks, digital marketers, see everything that happens on the internet.
So what does that mean to us?
So people are still to this day shocked if they see a meme and I haven't seen it, or if a news piece comes out and I haven't seen it. If there's a new trending hashtag, people expect that I've seen every meme, every article, every single thing that happens on the internet all day. And that is so far from the truth.
You're not omniscient.
I'm not, as much as I want to be, and as much as my partner would say he thinks I am. I'm not.
I thought you knew it all.
I did too. Turns out I don't.
If you were in my shoes, what question would you ask yourself that I haven't asked?
Oh, what an excellent question.
That's why I ask them.
Oh, I love good questions. What would I ask me if I were in your shoes? I think I would ask me, what's the most important part of my work and my business?
So what's the most important part of your work in your business?
Empathy. You have to care about people. You have to care about people. I want to, and we've kind of talked a little bit about this, and I do put some justice work and some equity work into my business. But actually, even if we threw that aside, marketing is nothing more than applied psychology. And to do so, and to meet all the many goals of marketing and advertising and business, you have to care about people, and you have to understand people, and be kind to people. And no one taught me that in the early days, but I've come to realize you have to have empathy. You have to be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes as they are, not as you want them to be, and live their experience to be really good at this.
And that's why you're successful.
I think so. I try. I do everything I can to remind myself to walk in other people's shoes.
Right, right. What does spirit mean to you?
Oh, what a big question. In my mind, so I do come from a bit of a religious background. It was only in the last, it was actually just a year ago. Facebook memories reminded me, I left the church a year ago. So I want to admit, in my answer, I kind of come from a Christian background with this.
Okay.
Spirit, in my mind, is the good energy and just the good that connects all people.
And how do you use that in your business?
Oh, coming back to empathy, I start every meeting. The first thing I always want to know when I go into a meeting with someone is, how are you? And the other half of that, the secret though, is to shut your mouth and listen. Actually listen. How are you? So I always ask that. And for people who are unfamiliar with me, I tell them, I say, I want you to really intentionally answer this question. How are you? And listening to the cues around me from, if I'm having a meeting with someone and they're very obviously distracted because they haven't told me their dog just died, which has happened, not being afraid to say, you know what, I feel like you're maybe a little distracted and you're not here. Is this not a great time to meet? We can meet another time. And providing space for people that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just caring for the human that's in front of you. All people are beautiful and wonderful and splendid in their own unique ways. So just remembering that and honoring that person in all the opportunities around me.
Good. Final question. If people are interested in engaging with you, where can we find you online?
Everywhere, because that's what I do. You can visit www.relationmediacanada.com. You can also, I would love to connect with anyone on social media. You can follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/relationmediaca, or Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Alignable, Yelp, at Relation Media. And I'd love to.
At Relation Media. Well, Tim, thank you very much for your time. You're certainly an interesting character, and I am honored to know you and had this chance to interview for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you.